Hey guys, welcome to episode number 88 of the Game On Girlfriend podcast. Today you're going to get to hear an interview with the amazing Audrey Zona. Now, Audrey is an intuitive and integrative health coach specializing in intuitive eating and the psychology of eating, which is so cool. As you guys know, this is a special topic of mine. I love bringing you information about health and nutrition, specifically because I know how much your business depends on you being healthy. This isn't like just a little hobby I have on the side. I think it's really important for us to understand what foods make us feel good, what foods make us feel yucky, what foods give us energy and power throughout the day to feel amazing. So you can go kick some assets in your business, right? I love that. And that's what I want for you. And I really hope that in today's conversation with Audrey, you hear that come through. Now, Audrey is brilliant. She knows this topic forwards, backwards, and like upside down. We could have talked about this honestly for probably days on end, especially the two of us, because we both love it so much. So in today's episode, you're going to hear the math behind weight loss. You're going to hear about hormones. You're going to hear about chemicals. You're going to understand the science behind what is happening inside of our bodies while we're eating. And then on top of that, we have all the societal norms and disciplines and rules and diets and fads and all the other junk that gets thrown on top of us while we're trying to understand how to eat more intuitively and to eat healthy and to eat maybe a little bit smaller portions than, the big fat plates that they send us in restaurants. So inside of all this, what I'd love for you to listen to that Audrey talks about is, for me, what I found the most interesting, and I think you will too, is the addictive nature, like the chemically addictive nature to specific foods. You get to guess what they are. You probably know, but she really talks about what happens in our brains and what it's similar to, which I think is really important. Now, you may have heard this in other places, but I think the way that Audrey pieces this together is really, really cool. And one of the other things I love about listening to Audrey and understanding why she does this work, and in order to bring it to you today as well, is that she's had to struggle with this too, which gives me a feeling of camaraderie with her, right? Because I struggle so much with weight and eating well and understanding why I'm eating certain things that I know I'm going to be pissed about in 15 minutes. You know that game we play? So I love how she talks about that. And I love to know that she's been through it too, right? To look at her today, you probably wouldn't know that, or you might guess, oh yeah, another skinny lady telling me how to do stuff. That's not Audrey. Audrey understands what this is like. And she shares her story with us in this episode, starting at age 9. Age 9, you guys, that's when this journey started for her, and her struggle with understanding why she was putting on weight and not looking like the other kids and being last to be chosen for games, those sorts of things that kind of scar us forever, right? We all have those childhood memories of like, oh my gosh, I wasn't included this way or that way. And hers had to do with weight and health. And I think that gives her a unique perspective. And I hope you'll hear that today. One other thing I wanted to mention that we forgot to talk about during the interview, so I want to give it here in the intro, is that Audrey is offering 10% off for anybody who wants to go into one of her one-on-one programs or to go into her group programs to work with her and learn more and educate yourself the way that she talks about in the podcast. So it's not like we're like, hey, go educate yourself. No resources are available. Go figure that out yourself. It's like, hey, let's learn more about this. And by the way, Audrey's happy to help you. And if you mention the Game On Girlfriend podcast, she'll give you a 10% discount on that, which I thought was really cool and very generous. All right, you guys. So let's get to it. Pop in those earphones, look into the camera, and have a great time with episode 88 of the Game On Girlfriend podcast. Audrey, welcome to the Game On Girlfriend podcast. I am really looking forward to this conversation today.
So excited to be here, Sarah. Thank you so much. This is so much fun.
It's going to be fun. I feel like I'm like, hey, so let's just have coffee, because that's what we do. We just talk and talk and talk. We could, I think.
Sure. Cheers.
I think we could probably talk for a good 4 hours before noticing. It's a little bit frightening sometimes.
Without a doubt. We have so much to cover all the time.
Well, listen, I've just shared with everybody your amazing amount of credentials. I feel like it just goes on and on and on. Your wisdom around food and health and intuitive eating. But I really wanted to give you just a minute with the audience to explain and share your story and why you freaking do this, because it is hard work to work with people to understand why they're eating what they're eating, all the different avenues that you take with people and understanding what's motivating them. Why do you do this?
Like, why do I do this? Well, I'll give you a little backstory. So I was a little chubby girl, and at the age of 9, my parents decided to send me to what they called back then, a diet camp.
Okay.
I come from this like long line of very overweight kind of grandmas. I had one that was
Yeah.
a caterer and food and all that good stuff was just around all the time. And my parents were really kind of concerned and worried. They're like, what kind of track is Audrey going down? So, and back then, like there was no Weight Watchers, no Jenny, like no nothing. So my parents decided to send me to a diet camp. And I ended up spending 3 summers in a row going to that camp, which I look back,
Wow.
that was like the most, honestly, to this day, I am so grateful that my parents exposed me to something like that
Mm.
because I not only lost, I mean, imagine, so this to give you some context, I was 9, I wasn't
Wow.
very tall, and I lost 30 pounds in 8 weeks.
9.
9. So I was
Wow.
really overweight. Okay. And I guess technically probably obese, like if you were to look at the scale and the numbers today. That following winter, I didn't quite get it and had gained most of it back. I was still young,
Mm.
not really getting it. Went back again, lost about the same. And at this point, now I'm starting to understand and I keep it off. The following summer, I go because I will never forget loving the camp, like the activity and the exercise and the healthy eating. And even at this really young age, I had this like desire and passion around wellness, which seems so crazy, but I
Mm.
did. And I always tell this story about being that young girl, in grammar school, never wanting to go to field day because I could never run the mile or do a pull up, and
Right.
always, always, always being picked last for the kickball team. Always, I was always. You remember, like they'd pick the captains
Totally.
and they would
Yes.
choose the kids, and I was always the one standing last. And I started on this work, and that's kind of an interesting story how I got into it. But
Mhm.
the premise was I never wanted for anyone to ever be standing last. I never wanted
Oh.
a woman to
Mm.
feel that they were nothing. And so here I was, this chubby little girl, but I then learned that there was this other side of living, having had the experience at camp and losing the weight. And actually, for the first time in my life, being able to run and being able to do a 15
Wow.
mile hike. And we
Wow.
hikes. And I was exposed to all these things with other children that were in my boat, So I came out of this saying, wait a minute, like I can do these things. I never thought I could do these things. And I want to help other people to experience what I experienced. So that was sort of the entree into the field. I dabbled in it for years, and then years forward, a wonderful, wonderful integrative functional medicine doctor asked me to start working with him and coaching his patients, and that's really
Wow.
where my business was born. Started doing one-on-ones and group programs, and it's just blown up, since then. So it's been such a joy. And when my clients come to me and they're telling me about the sugar addiction and the food addiction and the lack of positive body image and negative talk in the head, believe me, I get it. I'm right there with them. I understand. And it's still a journey for me. These things, they never go away. And especially
Mm.
deal with it as a child, you are left with some scarring that does need to heal. And it does heal over time for sure. But I can remember those moments, like when someone tripped me and I fell and I was called unfortunate names.
Mm.
It's
Mm.
hard as a child, but
Mhm.
I am so happy today to be able to help others. I have the compassion and the understanding. And when I will reiterate something to a client, like, how do you know that's how I'm feeling? I'm like,
You're like, because I've done it. I've been
because I've
there.
done that, like
Yeah.
been there, done that, So that's what makes me a little bit different. I think there's a lot of health coaches out there that don't have that sort of background and history the way I do.
Mm.
I'm
Mm.
really, really able to help help my men and women. And I say men and women because it's not just women. And it's also a lot of teens. I do work with a lot
I
of
can imagine. Well, I mean,
teens.
these teenagers are being raised on Instagram. I mean, I have a hard time with that. Sometimes I'll be on Instagram. I'm like, oh my gosh,
So
I
much
need to look like a fitness model, right? It's like,
really,
what is
really
going
tough. And
on?
I've got
I
the
can't
teenage
imagine.
daughter, so I'm like, I'm right there, like understanding, what they're going through and what they're up against, looking at all these perfect bodies, and it's just not reality. I mean, it's their
Right.
reality, but it's not reality.
Right. No, absolutely. Well,
Yeah.
Audrey, I want to ask you though, at that age, at that young age, did you feel shamed at all? Did you feel like there was something wrong with you that you got sent to these camps? Did any of that enter into you, or was it more like
It's
exciting for you to be introduced to something new?
Yeah. So I loved the camp in the sense that I was a part of this, tribe of women, right? Even though I was a young person, I didn't feel shame in the camp. And I didn't feel shame in the process because I was having so much success. I can remember every Sunday I got to make a phone call to my parents and I would report how much weight I lost, which today, the way I work with people, it's not only about the scale at all. I mean, back then was a very, very different, sort
Right.
of philosophy.
Yeah, it really was.
Um,
Yeah.
I did feel a lot of shame in just my own body before I started to lose the weight. I can remember my mom taking me shopping. I'll never forget. I grew up in Wyckoff, and there was a store called the Ivy Shop, and the owners were the most wonderful people. And I remember my mom speaking to the gentleman who was the owner, Bob, and asking like where I could go for jeans. And I had to go into the Husky boy department to find the right
Oh
size.
boy.
And
Right.
I remember just wanting to cry. And then I
Yeah.
also remember a time going after camp and fitting into a size 12 in the children's preteen department and literally wanting to cry out of joy.
Joy.
So I
Yeah.
had a lot of
Yeah.
experience with shame and joy through those young, very impressive years for sure. But I'm thrilled my parent. I mean, I say to this day, thank you so much for honestly
Hmm.
this opportunity because I don't know where I'd be if I hadn't had that exposure.
Right.
I needed to see that I was capable of exercising and moving my body. And I remember learning to like yogurt and tuna fish and bananas and things that you would think like everyone likes, but I guess I was just enjoying all these other kinds of foods and a lot of processed foods, believe it or not. And I also know that I was a huge emotional eater, but you kind of wonder what came first.
Right.
Was I coming
Right.
home from third grade in the junk drawer eating the cheese doodles and the coffee cakes and the devil dogs? Why
Yeah.
they were there, I don't really know, but that's another story.
Oh my
So,
God, devil dogs. Yeah, I totally know
okay.
what you're talking about. I forgot about those.
Oh
Yes.
my God. I
Yes.
called them, my mom
Ah!
used to give them to me and I called them cookie doggies. Don't ask.
Oh
So
my God, so
anyway,
funny.
was I eating all of that out of a frustration and emotion because of what was going on in school? Like what came first, the car or the horse? Um,
Mm,
but I
mm.
do have so many memories of me eating in excess a lot. And I think I truly believe after so much work and healing, that I've done over the years, I came into this world, honestly, to heal something. And I also believe I am here to do this work. And if I
Oh,
hadn't had
love
all
it.
those experiences that I had as a young person, I wouldn't be able to do the work I'm doing today. It just like, I
Mm,
just believe this is my purpose in life. I was put here on earth to do this work and to help others heal.
I
So
love it.
kind of a bummer that I had to deal with all that as a kid, but I'm happy to be here today.
I can feel the conviction in your voice, not to mention I know your work pretty well, but like I can really hear that. And I do think sometimes we're gifted our experiences as unpleasant as they are, right? And I always am very careful to say that it's not like, oh, yay, I had all these hard times. Yay for me. No, they suck. They're really hard. And when we can turn that into helping other people figure this out faster and with less pain, oh my gosh, let's do it. And let's use these experiences to make things better for other people.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
interesting, Sarah, because even to this day, I still get really weird things. And I say to my doctor, like, I have a little autoimmune stuff and thyroid, and I always have like Epstein Barr popping up, and I've had Lyme.
Mm,
Now
mm.
I have mold, and I just get weird shit. And I say to my doctor, who's an integrative, amazing doctor, I'm like, Dr. Pistori, why do I get this stuff? And she's like, you know my belief on that. She's like, I believe you get these things because you are meant to heal others, Audrey, because you get them and then
Mm,
you speak about them and you are a resource for thousands of people. And it's kind of funny because it does happen like that. And I always heal and I'm always fine. But I'm just that I think I'm like a vehicle to help others in some crazy way. I don't know.
absolutely. No,
So
I think that's right. I think that's beautiful, Audrey. I think that's spot on. So just really quickly, because we have so much I want to cover with you, but I have one more question that just came up as you were talking about this gift that you felt your parents gave you and like opening up this world to you that you didn't know existed and the immediate wins for you, right? Which is, oh my God, I am capable of moving my body all these different ways. I'm capable of running. I'm capable of playing, right? This is not something I have to miss out on life. I love that. How did the conversation go? Do you remember what your parents said to you as they found the camp? Did you ask for it? What was that like? What happened there?
okay, so it's like Sunday morning, we're all in the family room, parents having coffee, and the New York Times always had in the very back of the magazine section all the different summer camps.
Ah,
And there was the camp. They list all the camps. And I'm from Jewish heritage, and Jewish people tend to go to sleepaway camp. That's just what they do.
right.
I never really had so much of an interest in sleepaway camp, but I was, embarking on the age where you go. But a traditional camp for me really at that time was not what my parents thought would be best. So we found the camp, and I remember being very, very nervous and very, very scared. And to be quite honest, that first summer I was so severely homesick. I wa-
Mm,
I wanted to go. I wasn't opposed to going. I didn't fight them. Um, and I don't think I even understood what it was. I was 9. But
right.
when I
Right.
got there and it was more about being away from them. I had never been away from them and I just was very, very homesick. And it took me weeks to get comfortable. But I was always really good with bribes. And I remember my parents getting on the phone with me and saying, Audrey, if you stick this out, they knew how to work with me. If you stick this out, we will give you a big party when you come home. All the family will come,
Oh,
and we'll take you on a shopping spree because you will have lost all this weight. So that at 9 kept me going. I
worked.
mean, it really, really did. And it's like there was like a big pot of gold at the end of that rainbow. And so I stuck with it and I did fine. And at that point, I had really entrenched myself and I was so excited about what was happening and feeling good that I was able to stick it out. So it was just a rough patch in the beginning, but then it was smooth sailing. And I never
Mm,
and I never felt that my parents were not loving me or not or I never felt like it was a shameful thing. Like
mm,
they loved me
mm.
so much. They just wanted to help. And really, I never thought for a moment, like, I can't believe you're doing this to me. It wasn't
Right.
no.
Okay, good. Okay, cool. No, I was just wondering because I could see that going kind of a different way, right? Like
But
that could have
no, it
been like, God,
totally
my
could.
parents think there's something wrong with, and I love that they were able to explain it to you and you were able to hear it in such a way that it's like, no, this is out of love. This is to help. Like, go
Yes.
run, go
And then,
have fun,
yes,
go be a
yes.
kid.
There
Yeah.
was so much love. There wasn't, it just was. I mean, the only thing that they used to say, and we laugh about, I have a younger sister who's 3.5 years younger, who was this like skinny little thing, like always, never really ate very much. And they'd say, can you just try eating what Lori eats? Like she
Oh
would eat
boy.
half of everything. And that was like the closest thing that they ever came to like being, like not as perfect, but that's it. I mean, they would just try to tease me about, can you try eating what Lori was eating? But that was it. I mean, they were so supportive. And when I came home from camp, getting all the right foods and the healthy things in the house, I mean, they were unbelievable parents and still are unbelievable parents. So
That's
I
awesome.
was very fortunate in that sense.
Yeah.
I really
No,
was.
you really were. And yeah, I mean, I think that's a great way for you to have been like, hey, by the way, there's a whole path over here that, your mind got opened up to. But I mean, going back to like the cart and the horse situation here,
Mm.
why do you think at this point, like we know there's the pressure on women to be perfect, I mean, please, like I cannot get off that soapbox ever. There's this constant pressure, right, for women to just be as perfect as possible all the time, every day. But with all the pressure that we feel, all this perfection stuff going on, why is it, do you think, women gain weight in the first place? Is it really like a love of food? Is it like a lack of understanding which foods are harmful to the body and which ones aren't? Is it that we're supposed to be a little bit bigger than we are right now and we have this BS pressure to be a size 0 all the time? Like, what the hell is going on that we're gaining all this weight in the very, very first place? What do you think that is?
It is so complex, and it's a little bit of everything that you said. So, first of all, I will always say this extra weight that people perceive that they have on their bodies is really a symptom of something larger and more profound. That's number one. So, people aren't gaining the extra weight just because they like food. That just isn't so. Okay.
Okay.
You gain 1 pound. All right, let's just get back to some like basics here. In order to gain 1 pound, you have to eat 3,500 calories above and beyond this basal metabolic rate number. So, like, we all have a certain caloric number that we have to eat just to maintain and just to live, not to gain.
Just like, and this is like blinking and having your heartbeat and like all just normal stuff.
They're just like,
Okay.
we're just going to say for kicks, like you would need 2,000 calories a day just to stay where you are. In
Okay.
order to gain a pound, you have to eat 3,500 calories more to gain the pound. So that's, let's say in 1 week, you would have to eat another 500 calories every single day beyond the 2,000 to gain a pound in 1 week.
Okay.
At the end of the day, what I'm trying to explain is you have to eat calorically so much more to gain the weight. That's number one.
Got it.
That is why the body gains weight, because calorically you are eating more than your body needs. Plain and simple. Why? The next question is, why are we eating so much more than our bodies need? That's the big question. That's the
wait. Before you talk about it, because I think that's really important, but help us understand, because you're saying we have to actually eat more than what we need to get there in the first place, right? So can you give us an example? Let's say to gain a pound in a week, you have to overeat by 500 calories. What does that look like? What would that be?
Oh, that could be 2 glasses of wine and tortilla chips and some guacamole.
Okay.
That could be a really hefty slice of cake. It could be you decided to have potato chips with your lunch, French fries with your dinner, and ice cream for dessert. That's probably even more than 500 calories.
Got it.
On portions. It could be that you're having 2 to 3 glasses of wine every single night. Over the pandemic, that was happening.
That was a thing.
So
yeah, for sure.
people.
Yeah.
And it was not just a couple glasses of wine, but it was, let's make banana bread and let's make. So people were ingesting significantly more than 500 calories extra that their bodies did not need every single day. And that's why people gained 20, 30, 40 pounds over the COVID period. I mean, that's like the standard, what I'm hearing.
Wow.
It's very easy to ingest an extra 500 calories every day beyond what your body needs.
That was my suspicion. That's why I said, hang on, let's talk about what that actually looks like. Because sometimes I know people, are like, wait a second, how did this happen? How did this happen? And it's actually understanding, because when we say 3,500 calories, people are like, well, I didn't eat that.
Yeah.
So it's actually understanding, but there was that day and then that day and then that day and then that day and then that day and that snowball effect. So I just wanted to stick a pin in that one, because we always want to be careful, never to shame anybody, right? So there's that piece of it too. Like, this can happen quickly, but I want to get back to what you're saying is it's not only that we love food, and we all know COVID was like, who the hell thought we were going to live through that? Like, that was crazy. That's not normal. But like for women on the regular, how is this happening? Like, I can get it. Like, I've had the tequila shots and the guacamole and chips every once in a while. I don't do it every day, right? But every once in a while. And I can see how that could happen. But over time and overall, you're saying it's not just the love of food.
And I want to just go back to the 3,500 calories for 1 second.
Yeah.
Sometimes I get clients who say, like, I had this giant dinner and I got on the scale the next day and like I didn't gain a pound, or they'll say, I've been so good for so many days and I didn't lose a pound. And I want everyone to understand, it is physically like impossible. If you eat a little bit more one day, you cannot gain the pound overnight. Like that's not, like, biologically cannot happen. If the scale is up, it's because you have been eating more over the course of the last week or 10 days. I always say like the magic is happening or the damage is happening behind the scenes. It doesn't
Mm,
like, I always laugh like, oh my God, I had this big meal and I didn't gain any weight the next day. I'm like, of course you're not, because the body doesn't work like that. It takes
right.
time. So I just think there's so much to talk about with like the calories in and the calories out. And if you have a drink, you might be dehydrated and you might be down a pound. You're like, oh my God, how'd that happen? This is like another whole conversation. But
Got it.
back to your question. So what's happening is that women and men are using food as a coping mechanism. We have been wired, unfortunately, for many, 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 many years to use food and drink as a way to calm ourselves down, to bring down anxiety, to bring stress down. We are in most of the time a fight or flight kind of stress response
Mm,
state. And the
no
brain and
question.
body are brilliant. It knows that when you eat high sugar foods, high carb foods, and fat, and oftentimes together, it actually brings cortisol down. That's
Right.
science. That is why we're always craving these highly palatable foods when we're stressed out. And I'm sure
Mm,
many of you listening
mm.
think about the time that you just got off the phone with your mom or your husband or whomever or a coworker, and and you find yourself literally standing in the pantry grabbing the chocolate bar. That is
True.
that's the body's sort of brilliant way of figuring out how to bring that cortisol down, how to bring the body into that calmer space.
Mm,
That's what's happening, is that people, and they're unaware, they're unaware that they are stress eating, they're anxiety eating, they're emotionally eating. That is where we got to do some work.
got it.
Yeah, and that's where I bring awareness and mindfulness to everything that is going on in the person's life. And I got to tell you, the aha moments and the things that come up for these women after working with someone for like 6 months.
Right.
I'll give you a little case study. Yesterday, I had a woman who I've been working with for a very long time. And she said, I think I finally figured out that I do stress eat. And
Ah,
it never dawned
right.
on her before. So she was starting to understand that when she was feeling agitated, she would just go and grab those M&Ms that were sitting there that were her kids' M&Ms. And finally started, because I have her really paying attention and journaling and writing down what she's eating, she's connecting the dots. And
Got
she's
it.
really putting together, wow, I felt so agitated by X, Y, and Z. And I didn't even realize I was grabbing those M&Ms. But because
Right.
I'm writing it down and because we're having these weekly conversations, I'm starting to really pay attention to my actions and how they relate to the food.
I
I
was
don't,
going to say too, and there's a whole other thing going on there almost, right? Like it's like if we were grabbing Tylenol or we were grabbing Advil, right? We're grabbing something else to ease the pain. We're aware of that, but because food is so readily accessible, and I absolutely get that thing with like, there's just stuff sitting on the counter or whatever's hanging out wherever. You
yes.
just grab it and throw it in your mouth while you walk away. It doesn't even register, but the brain chemistry is shifting, right? You're getting the drop in cortisol, like you said. We're getting dopamine and serotonin as
You're
well, right?
also getting, so with the high sugar things and high flour, you are getting the dopamine response. So that's the other thing, is that as humans, we're always looking for a hit. We're always looking
Yes.
for a high. And so why do people gamble? Why do people shop? Why do people eat? Why do people drink? We're always looking for that shot of dopamine, in our brain. It's feel good. They're feel good hormones. There's so many pieces to this puzzle, Sarah, because there's a lot of people out there that don't know that they're really deficient in neurotransmitters. They really are
Mm,
deficient in the serotonin and the dopamine and the norepinephrine. And a lot of that comes from an unhealthy gut. So
wow.
it's like there's layers of like wellness that needs to sort of get healed. So when you start to heal the gut, your serotonin production gets revved up. When you start to eat more nutritious foods, your brain, it all works on the gut brain connection. The more processed foods and high sugar foods you eat, you're actually damaging your gut flora. In
Wow.
addition, you are keeping those dopamine receptors like on fire constantly. So the more sugar you eat, actually, the more sugar you need to eat to get the dopamine hit. It's like any
Oh my
drug,
God.
right?
I was just going to say,
Start-
it's like any drug, right?
It's
You need more and more and more.
it's a drug. It's a drug. And I'm not here to poo-poo sugar, and I'm not here
Right.
to say that people have to be off of it, because everyone is so unique and different. And some people can have like one bite of chocolate and move on and not even look at it for 6 months.
Right.
Others have one bite, and because of the chemical, their chemistry, their personal chemistry, they want half the bar, and then they want
Right.
it set, and then they find themselves driving to get the bar, so
Yes.
everyone's super unique, and I'm not anti-sugar. I'm just anti-drug. And so if,
Yeah.
if something
Yeah.
if something is tripping you up or triggering you or causing you to eat in excess that's not supporting your goals, we need to take a deeper look at, is this really working for you?
Got
Um,
it.
so
And is this like literal addiction? I mean, I actually was having a conversation with a family member in LA, right? Like the skinny capital of the world. We love you, LA, right? But like the skinny capital of the world. I was even walking around with my son at the beginning of the summer, and he's like, everybody here's so skinny. And I was like, yes, that's
yeah,
correct. Like this is like skinny capital of the world. Welcome. Everybody here's hot. Let's go. Right. Like walk around. I'm like, I need to
and
put a bag
gorgeous.
on my head because everybody's gorgeous. We
Uh-huh.
love you, LA. But I was talking to a family member who was flat out fat shaming. So he admitted that he flat out has a prejudice against people who have excess weight. And I said, listen, I think you have to tell me if I did this right, Audrey, because I don't know. But I
Yeah.
said, I think that's really unfair. I said, if someone has a cocaine addiction, you don't see it. If somebody has, an addiction to alcohol, we can't necessarily see that. But when someone's addicted to the exact same chemicals, right, the exact same reaction in a way that's harming them, we can see it.
Oh my
And
God.
it's totally unfair because you would support somebody in AA, or you would support somebody in NA, or you would support somebody going through that. Also very, very prevalent in LA, right? Like we support that. But if just because this is readily available and it's acceptable to eat, it's not always acceptable to snort something up your nose or light something on fire to put it in your body, right? So it's like this level of acceptance isn't quite the same. And I find that interesting that this addictive cycle, one is we label as bad in our society, and one is like, okay, and we have programs. Like it's
And
wait,
you're
what?
so spot on. And
Okay.
this brings up one of my most favorite authors, Susan Pierce Thompson, who wrote Bright Line Eating. And this is what she talks about. She gets,
Really?
yes, she does. She gets into the science of how sugar and white flour literally are like the same in terms of the addiction to cocaine and heroin. I mean,
Holy
she
cannoli.
talks about it specifically in her book. She shows mice and all of the different experiments that they have done, and the what she calls a susceptibility scale, how some people are so susceptible at 10, and there are people who are not susceptible at all, they're a 1. But how unfortunate it is that in our culture, it, like you just said, it's acceptable to, and we're like, oh my God, the poor person, going off to a program, they're addicted to X, Y, and Z. But there are hundreds of thousands, millions of people who are addicted to these foods, these processed foods, these high sugar, high flour foods. It does the same thing to the brain, and they
Wow.
cannot stop. They
Right.
cannot stop. She has a program. She's helped millions of people heal from this addiction, and she comes from a Overeaters Anonymous background.
Right. Fantastic.
She dealt with drug addiction, food addiction herself. She has an unbelievable story, and she is someone that I turn to in terms of just following her, and I turn a lot of my clients onto her book so that they have a real solid understanding of what these things do to the brain. And it's
Mm.
everyone. Once again, it's like, I'm not shaming flour and sugar, because for some people it's fine.
It's not well, it's just like some people can drink alcohol and it's not a problem, and some people can't, right? Like that's
The
just the way it is. Yeah.
same thing. So I end up with a lot of people, because I do talk a lot about this, throughout my social media platforms. And I get a lot of people come to me that say, I did Weight Watchers, right? And I love Weight Watchers, go Weight Watchers, but they still had all these processed high sugar little snacks, in the program. And
Got
I
it.
just kept losing weight because I was still eating these things. I still found myself very addicted to the sugars and whatnot. So a lot of my clients, I really have to kind of take away some of those high sugar, highly palatable foods in order for them to heal. And they do so much better without it.
Wow. Wow. Okay. So it's an actual physical healing, you're saying, not an emotional healing.
Oh, it's physical. And there's
Right.
also, but there is a little bit of an emotion. Listen, everything is like a dance together. There is definite, it's mostly, I think, physical for people who have a real addiction, but there's emotion there too, and they often think like, what's wrong with me? Like, why don't I have willpower? Why can't I do what my girlfriend does? And they don't realize like they're unique, they're different, and believe me, there's a lot of things that my friends do that like I just can't. But I've learned to
Right.
love myself and embrace where I'm at and just know that I'm a much happier individual not having the pizza. It doesn't work for me. It's just like it's highly addictive. I can't have gluten, a variety of different things. But I always will say, like, what guides me is how I want to feel. It's not necessarily about how I'm looking, but
Right.
how I want to feel. I don't want to be bloated. I don't want to be cranky. I don't want to be sluggish. I don't want to have brain fog. And certain foods make me feel ill. So I've
Mm.
learned through the years to really listen to my body. And that's really what I encourage my clients to do, is to really start to listen, because there is a little voice in there and you just have to quiet, slow down, and listen and pay attention. And believe me, like a lot can happen, a lot can shift.
I know there's just such a cycle of dieting. And listen, that's a very lucrative business, right? I mean, billions of dollars are spent on diets. And I talk about that all the time. Like the same companies that own the processed foods, right, are the same ones that put you on a diet, right? And then they give you processed foods and then they put you on it. Like it's a bazillion-dollar industry and people are at the effect of that, right? It's like when we stopped the advertising for cigarettes because it was like, this is not helping people, right? Like it's like, but we haven't quite gotten there around food. And I think for me, what's really important, and why I brought up that conversation that just happened recently, is because there's like this myth around it just being, well, willpower. Oh, you're lazy. Like, what's wrong with you? Like, just stop eating. Like that sort of energy towards people. And I personally, this conversation is twofold for me. One is I really want to stop that shaming aspect, because we don't do that to people who do have an addiction to alcohol or an addiction to a different substance, right? We don't shame people. We've learned not to do that, right? And for some reason, food is lagging there. Like we haven't quite understood the brain chemistry is shifted in the exact same way, right? So there's that piece of it. But the other is, I mean, I just had a client say to me, I've just realized that health is the number one obstacle to the success I'm having in my business. And I like wanted to jump up and down for joy, because yes. And what you just said about understanding what makes you have brain fog, like, oh my gosh, if you want to go out there and be successful and be the best version of yourself, why would you ingest something that's going to give you brain fog? But we don't always connect those dots. So I think my question to you was, why do we have this cycle at this level? I think there's a societal pressure for it, but what's going on for us, specifically as women, because women are listening to this podcast, what's going on for us that's creating the weight loss, weight gain cycle? What do you think is happening there?
I think it's twofold. I think one is, believe it or not, a lot of people are just not given the proper knowledge and understanding of nutrition. To be really honest, I mean, I see this every day in my practice. People thinking, I'm going to give you an example, that like they go for an acai bowl for breakfast and they think it's healthy. Okay. So this is the lack of understanding, lack of knowledge. The acai bowl, yeah, there's a lot of fruit, but there's way too much fruit. And there's granola and there's honey and there's, I don't even know what else is going on. There's acai, and they could be literally, I just read an article and I'm going to post about it. It could be over 500 calories and it could be like 40 grams of sugar. And that's how you're starting your day. You are literally spiking your blood sugar the moment you wake up. Okay, so that's just one.
Wow.
Or I'm going to go grab a bagel and cream cheese. Like, what's the big deal? Once again, it's just processed. It's white flour. It's addicting. You're spiking blood sugar. There's no protein. You're not supporting your body in any way. I find many, many people, although they think that they eat healthy, they really aren't. And so
Got it.
there's lack of knowledge. Okay. So that's part of it for a lot of women who live in very affluent areas, and they just haven't been really told. Okay. So that's a piece. And the second piece is, I just think that women in general, and I know this is very generally speaking, but they sort of put themselves last. It's like the family comes first.
You're
They're
here.
people pleasers. They're doing for everybody else but themselves. And at the end of the day, they are sitting down to the bottle of wine or the pint of ice cream or whatever it is at the end of the day to just sort of calm themselves. I deserve this, soothe themselves. And they're stressed. They're stressed. There's anxiety. There's some depression. There's a lot going on right now, as always, but more now than
Right.
ever. And I think that women are just programmed to use the food and the drink to as a hug, as love, to calm
Mm,
down, to make themselves feel good.
yeah.
They're really not paying attention. And especially what happens is when you get into these menopausal years, which so many women listening probably are, you hit 40. 40 to 60 are literally the toughest years to maintain your weight.
Huh.
At this point, your estrogen is declining, which means that your insulin's rising. And that's why we get this belly. A lot of women will say, like, I never had a stomach. Like, where is this coming from? This is a menopausal sort of middle, the menopausal middle, I call it. Um, and because they're still having the wine and they don't really understand what the extra sugar is doing. Um, they are still eating and drinking just their normal diets without understanding that they can't really do that anymore. Their bodies are changing, their bodies are shifting. Maybe the movement isn't quite the same. As we age, we really need to get into weight training. I mean, there's so many things we need to do as we get older just to support our musculature. So, women, just kind of in a nutshell, I think that women are putting on the pounds because they just don't know really how to eat nutritiously. They think they do, but they're really not getting the true knowledge. And B, they are eating more than they really
Mm.
should be for their bodies, but due to a lot of stress and anxiety and just stuff going on in life. Um, we don't really need as much food as we're typically eating. It's kind of interesting, when you really start to dive in, and we have a lot of mindless snacking going on, a lot of picking going on. Just there's a lack of awareness, I think, with a
Mm.
lot of the women that I'm
Mm.
speaking with. They're just kind of floating through their day, or they're like, they think they're doing a good job by like skipping breakfast or doing like a little intermittent fasting. They're kind of not really eating until midday, but then they're backloading their day and they're eating so much at the end of the day and
Right.
a lot of unhealthy foods. And they're just not cognizant. They're not aware. They're just sort of floating. They're just like grabbing this and grabbing that. And there's no plan. There's just no plan of action. And they're just sort of all over the place, honestly.
Well, I
So,
think we weren't taught. I mean, I think it goes back to what you were saying too. Like your parents gave you the opportunity to be taught about it. And I don't think we were. I think on top of the ridiculous portion sizes that are just way out of control, right? So we've got that piece going on. We just think that's normal, right? And then there is also the stress of the day. And now we've got this amazing drug at hand that's totally acceptable to shove in our faces, right? It's like, oh my God, this is great.
yes.
But it's interesting. I also think just from what I hear from my clients as well, and all of the women that I work with, I think what you said about us putting ourselves last is also really important. I've noticed just even in my own life, when I'm in a caregiving role, I tend to gain weight. And I
Mm.
think a lot of that is one, I'm numbing out, right? Like it's like, oh, let me take care of me by eating something I love.
Look what I've done all day. Like, I deserve to have X, Y, and Z. I mean,
Yes.
really, when you think about it, it's so ironic. It's like, no, what you deserve is to be healthy and well and to feel your best. You don't,
Yes.
but we automatically, but like we know that that big giant warm chocolate chip cookie is going to make us so happy in the moment. But
Yes.
it's only in the moment, Sarah. I mean, I say this every day, guys. It's only in the moment that you feel good. Then what happens? Then you realize, oh my God, I just ate 500 extra calories. The shame sets in. What's wrong with me? Why don't I have willpower? Why do I sabotage myself over and over and over again? I mean, this is the story that happens day in
Mm,
and day out.
mm,
And women just can't get out of it until they find the next new thing. Your friend tells you about, do this diet for 6 weeks and you're going to lose X amount of weight. Do this program, get these shakes, get this pill, try this, try that. At the end of the day, none of that works. You have to, and I say this, you will never ever heal. You will never get off that diet roller coaster until you do the inner work. I am so straightforward with my clients. When they sit here in my office and we talk about what to eat, what not to eat, and I say, guys, listen, if you don't deal with the underlying reasons as to why you're having the cookie and why you're having the bottle of wine, you will never heal.
Got it. And that's the thing. It's about healing, right? It's not about dieting. And that's the difference. I think that's one of the reasons I love your approach, Audrey, because while you have all the nutritional knowledge, right? You have all the chemical knowledge behind what food does to us when we eat it, all those things that you understand, which is something I've come to really understand as I've struggled with weight my entire life, right? And being healthy and being strong and the severe obesity in my family and watching these habits, right? Is that it's not willpower. It's not like you're so lazy. Like I mean, I still have that in my head from my own childhood. Like, oh, well, they're fat. They must be lazy. It's like, what, who said that? Like, what are you talking about? Actually, probably it's the opposite. That person is struggling with so much stuff you don't see that would knock you over.
Oh my God. And I will always
You
say
know,
there's no such thing as willpower. It's commitment and discipline.
and understanding.
And understanding.
Yeah, I think you nailed it with that. Yeah, it's why do you want to eat the cookie?
Like there are people dealing with so much stuff, and there's a lot of chemical, like the drugs, there's a lot of chemical stuff going on in the brain and the gut. I mean, we're finding, so there's these two hormones, ghrelin and leptin, and they're the hormones that say eat more or I'm full, I'm satiated. They're your hunger hormones. And there's
Yes.
a lot of research, there's a lot of data out there showing us that obese people, those hormones actually don't work properly.
Wow.
Like they're like
Wow.
deregulated. So there's a lot of science coming out about how, those hormones affect these people who are obese. Like they don't have control. It's not about willpower at all. They don't want to
Right.
be, they don't want
Right.
to be overweight the way that
So,
they are.
right. So it's really about understanding let me just sum up because this was a lot and it was amazing. And please, you guys always, those of you listening, we always want to hear, how can I support myself to be the best version of myself? That is the heart of this conversation always, right? It's always about like, what can I learn? What new things can I bring on? Because the game's on, right? Like, how do I play this game to the best of my ability? And to recap, I think what you've shared today, Audrey, that's so important is it really is on us to understand where the myths are, right? It's on us to buck the norms of like, you know what? I'm not doing this the way everybody else. My favorite was, what was it that was so trendy a little bit ago? The square of butter in your morning coffee. I was like, what in the actual hell is wrong with you people?
The butter, the MCT oil, it's the whole kind of like bulletproof intermittent fasting sort of thing, which for some people works, but I'm not a fan.
That's gross. Sorry, can we just talk about putting a square of butter in your coffee? I was like, anyway, I'm sorry, but sorry, my judgmental self just came out. It's true. It happens from time to time, but I don't like, that wouldn't be a natural thing for you to wake up in the morning and want to eat. And that I think is why it upsets me so much. It's more of that, listen, women, you don't really know. So we're going to tell you to eat a square of butter in your coffee. It's like, what?
Right.
Like that, as
Let's
opposed
get back
to
basics. Let's just
yeah, I know exactly. As opposed to just education, like you were saying, like understanding those portion sizes are bananas. Like that's not even close to what our body actually needs. And that we've gotten so far away from understanding how to hear our body, to go check our hormone levels, to have that and understand like we're big bags of chemicals. And if those are off, something is not going to work properly. And to understand that, and all of this with the idea that most optimal health is possible. And it doesn't look like eating carrots and cabbage all day. There's amazing things to eat that are gorgeous and wonderful. But it's almost like they've been intentionally hidden from us on a daily basis. I don't know. That's how it feels to me.
No, it does sometimes. And I think there's some fatty things out there. And I was just recently chatting with a nutritionist and we were laughing about how like she was saying like all the things that people think that they need to have in their world to lose weight, like celery juice,
Right.
like it was like celery juice, maca, like adapted. It was like all these like trendy things, which are all great. Like they have their place, but guess what, guys? You don't need to buy every collagen powder. Like that's not going to necessarily make you lose weight. Like there's so many other pieces to that puzzle. Like forget that. Just like eat some broccoli and have a salad for God's sakes.
Right. Right.
Like there's just so much more. And so I think we love to put a lot of emphasis on these trendy items, which by the way, they work here and there and they have a place, but You do not need to spend money on one trendy item. Like,
Love it.
don't.
Love it.
And
It's an overall holistic healing.
just like start listening to your body and do a 5-minute meditation every day. Do that.
You're good to go. Right.
Just do that. This is it. Get your sleep.
Oh.
Get your sleep. Do a 5-minute meditation. Eat your greens. Drink your water and move your body. There
I
you
like it. I think that's doable. I'm
go.
down.
Okay?
Love it. Yes. Yes. Oh, Audrey, this has just been such a joy today. Thank you for sharing all of your expertise and all of your wisdom with us,
Pleasure.
always with the goal that we all run towards this game because the game is on. So thank you so much for sharing it and helping more people along this path to becoming stronger and healthier and enjoying their life even more.
Thank you. You're the best.